Okay, so just keep me updated on that. So the title of this presentation is Telescoping Your DNA, and we're going to be talking about ways of moving back into your family tree or moving up the generations of your family tree by testing multiple family members. This is my standard disclosure. Please share this video if you like it. Bring up questions as they arise. This Facebook presentation can be shared, and it will be available on YouTube later as well as on Facebook. And we are having an Ancestry DNA kit giveaway on February 26th, and we'll talk about those details more later. So again, the title, Telescoping Your DNA, I put telescoping in quotes to emphasize the fact that this is not a technical term, but more of a descriptive term. And I use the term telescoping your DNA to talk about strategies and techniques for moving further back into the past with your DNA test results. And we'll emphasize sibling summation tonight. We'll talk about some of these other methods, visual triangulation and visual phasing, later. So hello to everybody who's joining us. Okay, so I think the issue of centimorgans has really come to the fore recently, probably because Ancestry DNA has made that information more visible. So we're getting a lot more questions about shared centimorgans, and this issue of sibling summation gets to the issue of shared centimorgans. You can get centimorgan values at any of the major DNA testing sites. So as you can see here, this is what 23 provides to show your centimorgans, and this is what Ancestry DNA does to let us know about centimorgans. And MyHeritage displays centimorgans very prominently here. So they all give you centimorgan values, and we're beginning to understand the importance of centimorgan values collectively as researchers. We refer to various charts to find out the nature of the relationship, the closeness of the relationship, by looking at the amount of shared DNA in terms of centimorgans. So we look at the various charts online to decide how close the relationship is. This is the famous green chart. There's also the tools available on Johnny Pearl's DNA Painter site, so you can take a look at those resources to interpret what the shared centimorgans mean in terms of the relationship. And I've come up with a term called sibling summation to describe a process where we add up the total amount of DNA that a group of siblings shares with one of their relatives. I believe that other people are using this method, but as far as I know, this method hasn't been given a name, and I think we need to have a name so that we can discuss it and utilize it for our matches. And I think that this process is really incredibly helpful for determining centimorgan values for untested family members, including parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. So that led to the subtitle of today's presentations: if you think you can't test your great-grandparents, think again. This process of sibling summation allows us to move one generation further in our family tree research with our DNA test results when we look at multiple family members, and we'll get into the details. So this process of sibling summation essentially gives us more matches and gives us more DNA per match, and I'll show you how. And to really understand how this method works, we'll talk about some basic concepts here. So each sibling only inherits 50% of each parent's DNA. So for example, a child will inherit only 50% of his mother's DNA. But collectively, siblings inherit more than 50% of each parent's DNA. So for example, a child inherits 50% of his mother's DNA, but collectively two children might inherit 75% of their mother's DNA. And that number increases with the number of tested siblings. So a group of 3 siblings might be expected to share, might be expected to inherit about 90% of their mother's DNA, and a group of 4 siblings might inherit approximately 95% of their mother's DNA. This applies to fathers too. I'm just using mothers as an example. These numbers are not exact. These are ballpark numbers because inheritance of DNA is somewhat random. But these are the kinds of numbers that you can expect if you include more and more siblings in your testing strategy. So again, if enough siblings are tested, all of their untested parents' DNA and all of their untested parents' matches can be recovered. And that's the key point in the sibling summation process. So your strategy, your highest priority, if you can, is to test multiple siblings in the oldest generation of your family. If there aren't any parents or grandparents available to test, or any aunts or uncles or great aunts or great uncles, your own generation is the oldest generation, and so you'll want to test yourself in as many siblings as possible. If you do have the opportunity, you can test your parents' generation, so you can test aunts and uncles with or without your parents. And if possible, you'll want to test your grandparents' generation with or without. You'll test great aunts and great uncles with or without your grandparents. So that's the strategy you'll want to apply. You want to test the oldest possible generation in that fashion. So again, what this accomplishes, if, for example, you test a group of siblings of your own generation, you essentially, if you test enough siblings, you recover most, if not all, of your parents' DNA. If you test your aunts and uncles with or without your parents, then you capture most of your grandparents' DNA, if not all of it. And if you test great aunts and great uncles with or without your grandparents, you capture most of your great grandparents' DNA, if not all of it. So there's a really important opportunity here that you don't want to miss. And this concept holds for half siblings as well, with the shared parent. So if you have multiple siblings who all have the same mother, even if they don't have the same father, you can add together the DNA of the siblings to capture most, if not all, of the mother's DNA. So what you'll need to keep in mind with any attempt to utilize this method is that you do need matching segment details for each sibling. And these matching segment details are available at 23andMe, MyHeritage, and GEDmatch. But these details are not available at Ancestry DNA. So if you've tested at Ancestry DNA and you want to take advantage of this opportunity, you'll need to get those test results over to one of the other companies, MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, or GEDmatch. You'll want to download a raw DNA data file from Ancestry and upload it to one of those companies that accepts the uploads, or you can test directly at 23andMe. So let's talk about this method in a real-world example. Let's put this into practice and make the concept more clear by using a real example. So in this case, we'll compare cousin RT with 3 siblings, sibling 1, sibling 2, sibling 3. And as you'll see, as we often do, these 3 siblings share varying amounts of DNA with RT. RT is a paternal cousin, and we've got different amounts of DNA shared between RT and each of these cousins, or each of these siblings. So you might wonder, okay, how much DNA could RT have shared with the father if he had tested? We don't have the father here, but we would be interested in knowing how much DNA RT would have shared with the father if we could have tested the father to compare directly with RT. The temptation might be simply to add these 3 numbers together, but I'll tell you right up front that won't work. You might be tempted to average the numbers, something like that. That won't necessarily give you accurate numbers either. So we'll talk about sibling summation, and we'll talk about exactly how you do it. So again, to add 36 plus 59 plus 100, you get 159. That is not the correct answer. That's not the correct way to do it. And so I'll tell you how we do it. This is from the chromosome browser at 23andMe. So if you scroll down on the page further, this page that we're working from, you'll see segments on the chromosomes. Each chromosome is numbered, and you can see these segments. If you hover over this segment on chromosome 1, you'll see that sibling 1 shares 17.76 centimorgans with cousin RT on chromosome 1. That's straightforward enough. There aren't any other segments on this chromosome, so we can start with that number. Then moving down to chromosome 2, we can see that RT shares 9.94 centimorgans with sibling 2 on this smaller segment, and 19.04 centimorgans with sibling 2 on another small segment. But we can see that RT shares 30.62 centimorgans with sibling 3 on a bigger segment, and this larger segment is the best segment to use in this case. We don't want to count all 3 of these segments because the 2 smaller segments overlap with the larger segment, and we don't want to count any DNA twice. So we'll go with the 30.62 and add that to the previous number. So 17.76 from the previous chromosome plus 30.62 on chromosome 2, and then we can move forward. So on chromosome 3, RT shares 17.23 centimorgans with sibling 3 on chromosome 3, and that's the only segment on this chromosome, so that's straightforward, and we can include that number with the others and keep going. RT does not share DNA with these siblings on all of the chromosomes, so we can skip on down to chromosome 10 now, where RT shares 12.37 centimorgans with sibling 2 on chromosome 10, and that one's straightforward. We don't have any other segments to worry about on chromosome 10, so we can add 12.37 to the other numbers, and we can move along to chromosome 13, where RT shares DNA with all 3 of the siblings, and the segment that RT shares with sibling 1 overlaps perfectly with the DNA that RT shares with sibling 2 and sibling 3 on this chromosome, so we can just pick one of those. We don't want to count this 3 times. The segment is slightly larger for sibling 1, so we'll go with that, and the number there is 17.86, so that gets added to the total, and we keep going, and we finally get to chromosome 21, where we see that RT shares 34.49 centimorgans with sibling 3 and with sibling 3 only. So we can simply throw that number in with the rest, and now we have a grand total. We add all of the numbers that we came up with each chromosome, and the total is 130.33. So I can tell you that we cheated with this one. We actually do know how much DNA RT shares with the father. The father is me in this case, and the total is 133 for me. So you see, with these 3 siblings, we got very close to the actual number, and that's the power of sibling summation. And I found this to be very useful for moving up one generation of the family tree by adding up the DNA that multiple siblings share with a cousin or some other match. So this is an extremely useful method, but again, we can't simply add up the numbers for each sibling. We have to go through chromosome by chromosome and look at the numbers very carefully. If you're comfortable with tables, you can get this data, or get the data in that form from 23andMe. That might be a more efficient way for many of you, but I did show it in the chromosome browser so that it would be easier to conceptualize with visual information. So moving on to another example. This example came from Facebook, and I appreciate everybody on Facebook who helped me with this. I put out a request for some GED match numbers so I could take a look at some large families, and a ton of people came through to help me out with this, so I really appreciate that. This is family B, and here we see family B, the siblings of family B compared with cousin N. And as you can see here, each of the siblings share a different amount of DNA with cousin N. And we can go through the process of sibling summation to come up with a total number. And again, you can't just simply go through and add all of these numbers together. You have to go through and look at individual segments. We won't go through all of that this time. I'll just tell you the results to emphasize how powerful this process is. So in this case, again, if we had only tested one of these siblings, we might be stuck with 240 centimorgans, and that would be all that we know. But since multiple siblings were tested, we can take a look at what sibling summation does as we increase the number of siblings included in the sibling sum. So with two siblings, in this case, we get up to 352 centimorgans. So with two siblings, 352, we get that number through the process of sibling summation. With three siblings, we get up to 423 centimorgans. That's the sibling sum for 3 of those 6 siblings. If we do a sibling sum for 4 of the 6 siblings, we get up to 491 centimorgans. If we do a sibling summation for 5 siblings, we get up to 515 centimorgans. And if we do a sibling sum for all 6 siblings, we're still at 515. And again, we've cheated on with this one. We actually know the real number. We're pretending like we don't know the generation up, just to demonstrate how powerful this is. In this case, cousin N shares 516 centimorgans with mom, and so the siblings in this case really get you right up to that number. So it's a very powerful process, and I strongly recommend trying this if you can. And you can see how as you increase the number of siblings included in the sibling sum, you get right up to the total number. And this is expressed as percentages. So the same numbers expressed as percentages. And as you can see, with 5 siblings, we're essentially at 100%. With 4, 3, still really high percentages. So we'll move on. So again, if we test enough siblings, we capture all of both of the parents' DNA. And we can use this for any generation in the family tree. We use the term siblings, but you've got siblings at every level. Siblings at your parents' generation or your aunts and uncles, siblings at your grandparents' generation, great aunts, great uncles. So think of siblings not only at your own level in the family tree, but at other levels as well. If you want to take this kind of investigation even further, I recommend Borland Genetics. Kevin Borland is doing some great work. I need to get caught up on the latest, and I would recommend that you do the same if you can. So again, my advice is to test as many family members as possible. Think about the best strategy. Think about the oldest generation. Think about what that can do for you. And as an example, I'll point out something from my own family. So my paternal grandfather died in 1987, long before our autosomal tests were available. But because he was the oldest of 8, he had several younger siblings, and some of those siblings lived until relatively recently. And in fact, 4 of these siblings, I show the 4 of these siblings could have been tested with autosomal DNA testing. If I had been smart enough, I could have tested all 4 of these siblings, and that would have been a great opportunity to capture the DNA from the previous generation. So if I had tested all 4 of my paternal grandfather's siblings, we would have captured most, if not all, of their parents' DNA, my great-grandparents. So Ralph's parents, Hugh and Pearl, if I had tested all four of Ralph's surviving brothers and sisters, we could have captured all or virtually all of Hugh and Pearl's DNA. And if we had captured all of Pearl's DNA, we would have gotten half of her father's DNA. David M. Peoples, he has a lot of descendants, and we're all up there scrambling to figure out where he came from and who his parents are. This is a really vexing brick wall. It would have been great to have half of his DNA. This might not still be a brick wall if we had half of his DNA, but that's an opportunity that was missed because I did not test my grandfather's siblings. So I point out this example to emphasize that we have some opportunities, and I'd ask you to take a look at the opportunities that you might have and to take advantage of those opportunities before you run out of time. And be sure to get the data into databases that provide matching segment details and or chromosome browser tools so that you can really take the data as far as it will go. So take advantage of telescoping strategies, sibling summation, visual triangulation, visual phasing. We've only talked about sibling summation tonight, but I will talk about these other methods later. And again, I'll ask you to hit the like button if you appreciated, enjoyed, got something good out of this video. Share it, leave some comments, subscribe to my channel. And again, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel for free, anytime between now and February 25, you'll be automatically entered into a drawing for a free Ancestry DNA kit, and I will announce the winner on my presentation on February 26th in my YouTube live stream. So at this point, we'll go ahead and address any questions that might have come up as we've gone along. I hope the sound was tolerable. If there are any questions about what we've talked about, I'll go ahead and answer those. So Lori Tower asked how do half-siblings fit into this question. We can take a look at the slide where I mentioned that. The answer to that question is this works for half-siblings with the parent that they share. It does not work for the parent that they do not share. So this is the relevant slide. Sibling summation, this method holds up for half-siblings as well with the shared parent. So if you have some half-siblings who share a mother but they don't share a father, you can use this method to approach questions with the mother's DNA. And then Kevin Borland says, if you only had two siblings, you can take into account the expected 75% coverage you mentioned and divide by 0.75 to get an idea of what the parent would have likely shared. That's a very good point, and I agree with that. That's a good way to think about it, and that's a good addition to what we've talked about. So you can adjust your numbers. You can assume that two siblings are going to capture about 75% of the DNA, and you can look at the total centimorgans shared. You can do this sibling summation, take the sibling sum and divide it by 0.75 to estimate what the total would be. So again, don't miss the opportunity to test great aunts, great uncles. If you have a bunch of great aunts and great uncles out there, you can test all of them with their permission, of course. If they let you test them, you could capture most, if not all, of your great-grandparents' DNA, and that's a huge opportunity. Alan asks, so what are all of the benefits of having more centimorgans? Will more matches show up? So the benefits of testing multiple siblings and taking a close look at that, there are two big advantages. One big advantage is that you get more centimorgans, and so you get a clearer picture of the strength of the relationship, and you're essentially moving one generation up in the family tree, so you're getting closer. And another benefit is that you're more likely to capture more of the matches. So that's kind of a parallel benefit. You get the parallel benefit of capturing more of the matches that the parents would have had if you had tested them. So I've seen this in my own research. I don't have access to either parent, but I do have access to all of my siblings, or most of my siblings. So there's actually 7 of us that have tested, and as a result of having 7 tested siblings, we have really deep coverage, and so it's a huge benefit to test a large number of siblings if you have that opportunity. But even with a smaller number of siblings, you get a big benefit. So you go up from 50% coverage with 1 sibling to approximately 75% coverage with 2 siblings. So that's a big jump. Carol's saying that there's an obstacle with older relatives who are skeptical of putting their DNA out there. One of the things that you can discuss with people is the various privacy options. So one possibility is to do the testing, get your matches, and then opt out of matching shortly thereafter after you get the info that you want. We certainly want most people to leave their results up and leave the matching out there, leave the matching function. We want people to stay in the system and participate, but if the only way to get someone to agree is to select a really high level of privacy and go with the strict privacy options, that is a possibility. So hopefully that makes sense. One way is to be very conservative with the privacy options. Okay, so I hope this gets this concept out there. I'm sure other people are using this method, but as far as I can tell, no one has come up with a term to describe this method, and I really think it would be helpful if there's a better term, a preferable term to describe this process. I'd certainly be open to using a different term, but for now I think the term sibling summation is a pretty good way of describing what this is, and I would certainly encourage people not only to use the term if it makes sense to you, but to use the method. Most importantly, use this method to learn more about previous generations. Stephanie says that some people in her family are refusing to test, so she's hoping that she can get aunts and uncles to agree. That's certainly a perfectly good strategy. Testing multiple aunts and uncles can be as beneficial or even more beneficial than testing your own parents. They capture DNA from your grandparents just as well as your parents do, so that's a good strategy. Leslie's saying she doesn't understand how to use the total centimorgan value. So basically, if you get the total centimorgan value, the most straightforward application is to look at that number and look at one of the charts that tells you what relationships can be expected with that amount of DNA. And so that you can do that with individual centimorgan values for each person, or you can generate this sibling summation number, and that serves as a proxy for the parents' generation, and then you're moving one generation closer. I could do some other examples. I might do that in the future. I wanted to keep it simple and not give too many examples this time. Didn't want to bury people under a bunch of numbers, but I've seen numerous examples where a sibling sum really gives a very clear picture of what's going on in the earlier generation higher up in the tree. So it's been extremely useful for me, and I can provide countless examples of how it works beautifully. So Leslie's asking, so the summation number tells you how your father matches to your matches. That's correct. That's exactly what I'm saying. And this can be applied to fathers or mothers. But if you come up with this sibling sum, you're coming up with a number for your parent, even if you haven't tested your parent. And that's the key thing. If you've tested your parent, this isn't as useful. If you've tested your grandparents, it's not as important to test aunts and uncles. I'd still do that for other reasons. But you can come up with a sibling sum to come up with a centimorgan value for an untested parent. So that's the real magic of this method, is that you're getting centimorgan values for people who have not tested. You are able to do that. If you get enough of a person's children, enough of those siblings, if you get enough siblings, then you're getting centimorgan values for someone who hasn't even been tested. And I think that's a really amazing way to look at things. Okay, I think we're ready to wrap things up, and I appreciate everybody being here. Looks like maybe there's some more technical difficulties rolling around. If there are any other questions, we can wrap up one last question. All right, if you have other questions later, you can leave those questions in the comments section. Either on Facebook or YouTube. I will get to those questions as soon as I can. I want as many people to understand and appreciate this method as possible, because I think it's very useful, and I think a lot of people could benefit from it, especially if we do the right testing strategy. So test your own siblings, test your aunts and your uncles, test your great aunts and your great uncles. If there's someone missing who can't be tested, like a parent or a grandparent, you can test other people in the same generation, and not only fill in the gap, but push things a generation up further in your family tree. Sue says thank you. Lori says thank you. You're welcome. I appreciate you being here, and we'll have another presentation again soon.